What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. We're getting into predictions for the upcoming WWE Money in the Bank 2021 pay-per-view coming up this weekend. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, are Callum Wiggins.
Hello there.
And Robert DeFelice.
So I had planned to cover this on the roof of Titan Towers, but I just got word that fans are back. Hey.
Yeah, you know, if you've got a live crowd that you can disappoint, that's a lot better than to disappoint the corporate people, right?
And then
So you can see the tears in their faces firsthand.
That's right.
Tasty tears.
Instead of fighting on top of your corporate structure.
Well, they are not using those taglines yet this year. I mean, we're only a couple days away, and they have not, from what I've been able to see, they've not once said, obviously not climb the corporate ladder, because now that's not the gimmick anymore, but not even the risk is worth the reward or climb the ladder of success or anything. Instead, it's, hey, fans are back. That's the tagline this time around. And that's going to be the tagline for at least the next 3 months or so, it seems, because, hey, fans are back. So we know that we've got 6 matches currently on this card. We should have had 7, but one of them we talked about before is not happening because Bayley got injured. So no more SmackDown Women's Championship I Quit match for her and Bianca Belair. Maybe they replaced it with one of these matches. Maybe they're going to replace it with something else. Maybe they're going to replace it with a segment about, hey, fans are back. You know, we might have like Sarah Schreiber just kind of in the ring just being like, it's so great to have you guys because fans are back. And they'll be like, whoa, we're fans, we're back. And, you know, I think that as much as there's a drinking game up on smarkoutmoment.com for the Royal Rumble and for the Hall of Fame, I have considered having a drinking game up for this year's Money in the Bank, where the amount of times that they say, it's so great that fans are back, you take a shot, or, you know, gulp, or I don't know how drinking games really necessarily work, because I'm not a drinker, but you do a whatever. And also, however many times that they say, 83%, I think is the statistic right now, of the winners have cashed in successfully. And however many times that they reiterate, at any point in the year you can cash in, and it's almost guaranteed that you're going to be the champion at some point. You can cash in on either champion. Like a lot of these things that are pretty much staples, but one staple that is on the positive side of things about Money in the Bank is it's one of the biggest, most important pay-per-views of the year. Whether they screw it up or not, it is one of the biggest things that they can do, because this Money in the Bank ladder match, both of them, I should say, are things that can have major ramifications going forward. So just as much as something like the Royal Rumble is in a lot of fashion, this is something that you got to take into account for. What are they doing for SummerSlam? What are they going to do for Survivor Series? What are they doing for Mania? Who's hot right now? Who might be hot later on? We're going to get into a lot of speculation about the future here. Obviously, we don't know a lot of what's going on. I don't think that WWE knows a lot about what's going on, but, you know, that's another story too. And we're going to also talk about a Universal Championship match, WWE Championship match, the Raw Tag Titles, and the Raw Women's Championship, and question marks about whatever else is happening. So we invite you to do the same and tell us your predictions and your thoughts in the comments section below. While you're over there on YouTube in particular, hit the like button, hit the share button to pass this along, hit the subscribe button if you have not already subbed to the channel, ring that little notification bell, that way you know when we go live for things like the pay-per-view post-show at the end of this month, the end of this week. And if you feel so inclined to help us out, give us a little bit of a tip. You got the applause button, you got the join button for the members only stuff that you get access to, like the Dark Casts and the Pick Your Poison tier, which are the same things that are over there on Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/smarkoutmoment and you want to help us out, you want to help us grow, you want to help me switch over to WordPress because Blogger is a piece of shit and they just made things worse today. That's infinitely harder for work to be. That's something. So, you know, maybe how many times have I said this year on the podcast versus not on the podcast of this being a make or break type of a year? I don't know.
Many more times off the podcast.
Many more times off the podcast. But hey, that's today. It became more like that. So if you want to try to make sure it's a make it year instead of a break it year, donate to the Patreon. help me stave off insanity. And God forbid the insanity comes this weekend with this pay-per-view. How are you guys feeling about Money in the Bank? At least right now. This is 3:10 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon. So for all we know, 3:15, something's going to change. Are you feeling positive, negative, meh, middle?
I'm super excited. I hate to admit it, like I hold them to a bit of a higher standard, but the fact the fans are back is a huge thing. It's going to feel like a completely different show. And Money in the Bank is always fun, you know? And I just want to have fun. And I'm hoping that the show delivers.
Rob
Callum?
just wants to have fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it more than most shows because it's one of the only 2 shows a year where anything fucking matters in WWE. So
This and the Royal Rumble.
yeah, exactly. They're the only 2. These are we're about to see 2 of the 3 matches at any year that actually 4 matches because now there's obviously men's and women's versions of all of them. It's 2 of the 4 matches every year, which actually means something. So, yay.
Yeah, it's hard not to have that kind of cynical mindset, but it's true. And it's also hard to not have that cynical mindset on top of that but they're probably going to screw it up because these past couple of years, Money in the Bank has been rough. They have, for instance, last year, if anybody remembers that this was only a year ago, we had Asuka win the Money in the Bank and cash it in, finding out that the championship was on the inside because Becky Lynch was apparently pregnant when she was wrestling at WrestleMania. Thankfully, of course, Becky Lynch is, a happy mom at this point, and Asuka had not only that one title reign, but a second one, even though both of them were really kind of pushed off to the side. And then we had Otis, who just got the briefcase through like a fluke, and then kind of pissed off for a while without doing a damn thing. They were like, hey, he's Mr. Money in the Bank, and we're not going to book him for a couple weeks, kind of a thing. And eventually loses it to The Miz. He breaks up with his tag team partner. He loses the girl. He doesn't feud with the tag team partner. The partner gets released. Mandy gets moved over to Monday Night Raw. Mandy gets eventually moved over to NXT yesterday. And Otis turns heel and shacks up with Chad Gable and gets a haircut. So it's not always a success story with this Money in the Bank, or else it would be higher than 83%. And there's a chance that we head in that direction, and a month or so we're looking back and going, God damn it. Or we can look at this and go, man, they really did turn things around at that point.
I think they have, at the very least, for this briefcase, I think they have major plans for both. Because there's one briefcase winner that I definitely think is cashing in, night of. And the other one, you have options where you can legitimately build a star, and there are some clear-cut, choices there.
So we will save the discussion for the Money in the Bank ladder matches themselves until, well, I don't know. They might. Does anybody have any prediction that is dependent upon the Money in the Bank cash in, other than the one that Rob? I think you're still talking about the one in the men's, right?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
I don't.
So, actually, yeah. You know what? Let's not save it because this might factor into how we play out with the Universal and WWE Championship. But let's still put it on hold just a little bit because we know at the very least that the question marks are out there of what are they going to add to the card. Right now, we have those 6 matches, and everything has been thrown for a loop because we were supposed to get that I Quit match. They took that off because instead of replacing Bayley, they decided to have Carmella face Bianca Belair on SmackDown. I don't really know how that's an equivalent. Doesn't really seem like that's the smartest way to go about doing things, because at the very least, if you would have just had SmackDown be whatever it was supposed to be, and then Carmella faces Bianca at the pay-per-view, yeah, it doesn't do anything for the pay-per-view, and maybe that's what they're thinking is, screw it, it's not going to matter anyway. But I don't know. I mean, this whole thing seems kind of strange. Are there any matches that are not booked on this card that you feel are going to be added either to the kickoff or to the main show itself? When we're at 6, we probably need 2 if not 3 more, depending on how they've been doing.
There's only
lately.
one more that I think will be added, and they might do it on the kickoff just because fans are back, and that's the Usos against the Mysterios for the SmackDown Live Tag Team Championship.
That's the main one that I was thinking. And I think that the Usos win those titles if that happens.
Absolutely, because we're all in the family.
Besides that, no, I don't think there's really realistically anything else they're going to add.
I can't. Oh, good.
I mean, what they don't really need to.
They don't need to, no.
I mean, they could just probably go with these 6 matches. I mean, both
The ladder
matches are going to take about probably 25, half an hour. You know, Edge and Roman is going to go longer than it needs to. So,
see if the Wikipedia has a list of those Money in the Bank ladder matches, how the times were for those, because all right, so it's like some of them are we've gotten some that are like 13 minutes, and we got some that are 27 minutes.
But if you take
some of them are on stat cards and some of them are on cards like this, but they need to go longer.
Yeah. Apparently the one that Baron Corbin won was 29:45. That might be the longest one.
That's a long time for a really disappointing outcome.
So if you take that into account, and then you factor in like 10 minutes for entrances.
Yeah.
So that one and the Randy Orton one were the 2 longest one. That was 28:38. So we have the precedent that they could go a half an hour apiece. And this pay-per-view is scheduled to start with the kickoff at 7 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. They've been doing that thing that's the opposite of what we wanted them to do, where they're like, let's start later then, that kind of thing. So if they start, technically speaking, at 7, we know that we're not going to get a kickoff match until probably 7:30. I would assume that they're going to have a kickoff match. And then we might not get anything else. It might just be those 6 for the 8 o'clock until 10:30 or whatever it might be. But there's at least one match that they should add because they should add it for the kickoff. Maybe they don't with the Usos, though, because they are doing this thing lately where it's like, well, let's not do that on the pay-per-view. Let's do that on TV. And they might want to just spontaneously add that to this Friday's SmackDown or next Friday's SmackDown or whatever it might be. There's a chance that they just literally throw something out there that doesn't matter all that much because it's the kickoff. Like, they've continued this feud between Jackson Riker and Elias. Maybe they just do another match. They set up this idea that Sheamus had wrecked Humberto Carrillo on Monday Night Raw. Maybe he gets a rematch for the United States Championship, and that's really not something that matters super duper much. So they could throw that on the kickoff, and I don't think that would be like so upsetting. They could do Damian Priest against Sheamus, but I think that that's more of a follow it up on Monday Night Raw type of a thing. There's an option for a couple different things here and there. Would have been a good scenario to maybe have the women's tag team titles on the line. But
no, you'd have to have tag teams for that, Tony.
You have to have tag teams. You'd have to follow up on a story that you've been building for a bunch of weeks that you could have done a couple weeks ago, but you decided not to, and now you're just going to drop.
And like, I'm not even being funny here. I just want it to stop. Like, these titles mean nothing, and they just exist to exist. And they did, when they first brought them on, they were good, and they've clearly waned in significance. I just think that they should drop the idea of women's tag titles. Of course, they can't do that, though, because then it's a slap in the face to the audience, and the audience will, not stop talking about it, even though it's clearly the right move for the roster.
There's also no presence for the Intercontinental Championship, but Apollo Crews is in like a waiting period right now. They definitely did not have plans for him, so they're just sort of like, can everybody not pay attention to how he's not doing anything? That kind of deal.
Or they did. And the fact that they had started a Big E Aleister Black feud, who is now on AEW, kind of screwed up some plans in that mid-card range on SmackDown.
Mess. Everything's a mess. So I'm assuming at the very least we get one more match on the kickoff, and that it is not anything related to the women's division. They don't have a whole lot of women to really, spare in this regard. So Maybe it's Usos, maybe it's not, maybe it's United States title, whatever it might be. If we do get some kind of an announcement of that before the hot tags, we will address that on the hot tags and give our updated predictions about that. But at the very least, for right now, we've got 6 matches, and one of them is AJ Styles and Omos against the Viking Raiders for the Raw Tag Team Championship, a match that was originally supposed to happen on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, my guess is they decided that if we're not going to do the women's title match, even though we booked a women's title match on the pay-per-view, we should move the Raw match that we had booked for the night after Money in the Bank to Money in the Bank. Nobody else is really dissecting it that hard, so I will not either. AJ and Omos win because unless they're like, AJ, we need you as a single because we need you in a big match for SummerSlam, there's no reason to, split them up right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear where things are going. I don't really want to go into why it's on Money in the Bank and not on Raw, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's just going to be AJ and Omos retain because they're going to be facing RK Bro at SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really think of any other match that they could be preparing Styles for to make them drop the title. The only thing that might be a spanner in the works is if they try and do this cool thing of like, oh, fans are back for both tonight and the next night, so what we're going to do is going to have AJ and Omos drop the title to the Viking Raiders, only for them to drop the title immediately back the next night to AJ and Omos. Because
and they're way
anything can happen in WWE.
Yeah, they are way into that idea of hot potatoing stuff here and there. They want to do those, we gave you a moment type of things. Even if it's not logical, you can't count it out for WWE. Logic sometimes not only isn't factored in, but is adamantly refused sometimes. So the logical course of action here is Viking Raiders have had their championship runs in NXT and Raw. They've established themselves as a decent enough tag team that they can lose to Styles and Omos and make Styles and Omos look better, because they haven't done jack shit with these tag team titles because they spent like the first month just gone because of COVID. And then they really haven't followed it up with a whole lot much else. They kind of retained a little bit against the New Day and they kind of fought some other people here and there, but they need another victory. And between Omos being as big as he is and Styles being a multi-time world champion and just, overall fantastic, they should be victorious. And this should set up that down the line they fight RK Bro, because they are, despite the fact that the Viking Raiders won a number 1 contenders match, you would think that that's not the case, because Matt Riddle on his own has been a bigger prominent force in the tag team division over the past couple of weeks than the Viking Raiders have been. It just goes to show. I mean, the RK Bro's great, so of course they're dominating some of the landscape. And if the Viking Raiders win, which I don't think is happening, they're dropping it right away, just like Callum said. So you might as well just keep it on Styles and Omos.
And
Viking Raiders put up a fight, they lose.
Unless there's a reason Randy's out and he's going to screw Riddle at Money in the Bank, they're putting on RK Bro at SummerSlam.
Or at the very least, they're fighting for it, and then that's when they break up. Because maybe they lose that, and then Riddle gets turned on because it's like, you lost the pinfall, and, I'm Randy Orton, I shouldn't have friends, that kind of thing. I'm sticking with Styles and Omos, so are you guys. It is an easy call. Probably the easiest call of this whole thing, except for maybe even potential Bobby Lashley. But I do think that that's pretty much a guarantee, as much as a guarantee could be right now. They are playing the hot potato game. They are probably going to look to make some kind of swerve happen on this show just for the sake of giving somebody something to talk about. I just don't think it's happening here on this match at the very least. Might happen on potentially on almost any of the other ones. I don't know. Styles and Omos retaining. That's what I'm going with. You guys as well too, right?
Correct.
Yep.
So the other match that I think, actually, I shouldn't even say that I think we know where it's going, because it's kind of up in the air. The Raw Women's Championship match, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. I'm just totally leaning much more towards Charlotte Flair winning, based off of their track record of just give it to Flair as often as you possibly can. The fact that they keep going back to this, and they keep doing little things to make it to where Ripley is on top, which in their mind, I'm sure is like, well, we're making sure that she doesn't look as bad when she loses, but that doesn't matter as much as when she's going to lose, but they're not going to look at it that way because they don't want to look at it that way. You know, it's that confirmation bias kind of thing. I think Charlotte's just winning this, and I'm really disappointed that that's probably going to be the case.
I can honestly say, as much as there is a version of these two women that I love, I don't give two fucks about this. They have stripped this down to being dull and boring, and I hope Charlotte Flair wins, because I think at this stage in the game, she's a better character than Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, I don't have too much interest in this match in general. I don't really know, because to me this just seems to be a stopgap before you give the title to Becky Lynch at SummerSlam. So I don't really know who the better match would be in that regard. I mean, the more interesting one would be if Rhea Ripley retains and then you have Becky against Rhea at SummerSlam, because at least that's a match we haven't seen before. And then you can actually lean into the fact that Rhea is a heel, rather than they're both heels and we're supposed to like and hate both of them at the same time, which is what's going on in this feud. I mean, I think based on the story that they're trying to tell, and I can only say trying to tell, is that Charlotte Flair is apparently teaching Rhea things, and Rhea is picking that stuff up, and Charlotte says things like, oh, well, you're learning, but I'm still the one on top. You still, like, to beat the woman, you have to be the woman, blah, 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 blah. And I feel like in order for that to reach a satisfying conclusion, Rhea has to win this match. But they could do Charlotte versus Becky again. And so that could be the final. At the end of the day, for me, it's a complete toss-up, this one. I will go with Rhea Ripley as my pick, though.
I'm hoping that Ripley retains, if not just because I hope that they learned their lesson from WrestleMania 36, but I don't think that they have, because I don't think that they look at that as much of a failure as it was. And if you step outside that bubble, you can really tell how much damage that did to Rhea Ripley. We've talked about it ad nauseum, so I'm not going to go into the specifics about it, but I still think she needs a definitive win over Charlotte that's like the end kind of a thing to even get close to going back to the level that she was before, but she still hasn't been able to capitalize on that, because once you lose momentum like that, you can't really quite just pick up where you left off. You know, if there's like a trend that's really popular, I mean, shit, look at it this way. Pokemon cards are really popular right now because just cards in general are really popular. I am not tapped into the same market as I was when I was a little kid, but even my nieces and nephew and everybody are still just like, it's not as big as it was when it was in its heyday. You can't capture lightning in a bottle twice and have it be in the same intensity, but you can at least try to spark something, and you're not getting that if you just have Charlotte beat Ripley again. Then at that point, it's confirmation that Ripley is not the better woman, that Charlotte is her superior, and that Ripley has to work her way all the way back up again just to prove herself to get to the championship match and to potentially lose again or potentially win. And then I don't think that people are interested in that underdog story in the same kind of fashion, because Rhea Ripley's not that type of an underdog character. She's not a Daniel Bryan where the chase is what you're going for. She is the badass who is on top. And giving the belt back to Flair for whatever reason they feel would be a necessity, I think it's going to do more damage to Ripley than it could do any positives to anything else. And if it's just to do Flair versus Becky again, they're showing that, once again, that brass ring is, you get those chocolate coins where it's like, that's not gold. Chocolate's great, but it's not the same thing. So I'm hoping Rhea Ripley retains. Rhea is great, and she hasn't found her footing on Monday Night Raw yet. And I kind of feel like that's because she's in the shadow of Charlotte Flair. So I'd love to see her just push that out. Now, that means there's a reason that we got to loop back around, because this championship is on the line. The SmackDown Women's Championship is not, but both of them could potentially get cashed in on from the moment that they do the Money in the Bank ladder match for the women onward. So the first question I got to ask, do you think that, without saying who you think is going to win the Money in the Bank ladder match, do you think that the winner is going to cash in on the Raw Women's title?
No.
No.
Not at all. Not even necessarily like tonight. Or that night. Not tonight. Tonight's Wednesday.
Fuck, I don't know.
I mean, in that case, if a Raw superstar wins, I think and I do think there's a possibility a Raw superstar could win.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
and there's a draft as well at some point. So
correct.
Yeah, that's.
So, yeah.
And we don't even know when that's happening, because it seemed like it was supposed to happen the week after SummerSlam. Now it seems like it's happening in the beginning of October, but we're still getting trades. So
the question is, like, will the winner of the women's Money in the Bank ladder match cash in on one of the two women's world championships? Yeah, I think she will.
My answer is yes.
More so, are you feeling one way or the other that their plan, if they have a plan, would be factored in with Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair? Or do you feel that it's more along the lines of Bianca Belair? Or, like, whoever would be Belair if that was the case?
I don't think it's Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. I think that, well, I can't say for sure if it's Raw or SmackDown. I don't think Ripley or Charlotte are directly affected by Money in the Bank.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be involved in that feud particularly. Any further than that, I can't really tell you.
I am personally hoping that this is more on the SmackDown side of things, but I'm also hoping that that doesn't mean that their mentality is, well, we'll have Money in the Bank for that, and our big thing for Monday Night Raw is it's back on Charlotte, and we're just doing Charlotte and Becky again. But hey, that hasn't happened in a couple months, so they'll probably do that. But to talk about that, we got to talk about the ladder match. So the women's Money in the Bank ladder match is not fully sorted out at this point. We don't know who at least one of the people is going to be, because very clearly their plans have changed. Carmella was in this match. Bayley gets injured. They pull Bayley from the card because she can't wrestle because she's injured. And instead of doing what Rob's idea was, which I think was an infinitely better idea than they're probably going with, because we don't know where they're going quite yet. Rob's idea was, hey, why not have somebody against Bianca, and then if that person loses, or if Bianca loses, they're immediately into the Money in the Bank ladder match, and then it becomes like, well, now you get a chance to win the title back, and that kind of a thing. I think that would have given some kind of intrigue to it, and it would have been, kind of interesting. But
it solidifies something that, like, Carmella's not beating Bianca. She's not.
No, she absolutely is not.
You could have easily said Carmella loses, Carmella's still Money in the Bank.
And she could lose the Money in the Bank match, and then, hey, well, she lost it because she just had a title match, so, she looks kind of strong.
And literally nothing changes. I don't think Carmella is factored in to win the thing.
Right. I don't think so either. So she's like a non-entity at this point. She's just going to be a sacrificial lamb on SmackDown to, I think, set up the return of Sasha Banks. And there's one other option.
You mean Reginald is coming back around for this feud?
I mean, Reginald is busy being in a trance in a non-feud while somebody else is feuding with somebody else, while somebody else is feuding with somebody else, while this thing's dropped, and it's another whole thing. But I do think that there are only two real options for that last participant, and Sasha Banks is one of them. And I think that either they planned on having Sasha return on this episode of SmackDown just as like, hey, you know, she popped up and that's the final member of the Money in the Bank ladder match, or that they're going to do something where they decided like, hey, you know what, let's have Bianca beat Carmella and then Sasha's going to attack her afterward and say, you know, I'm the last member of the Money in the Bank ladder match, and when I win that, I'm going to cash in on you, kind of a thing. Or the game plan has been, or it could have changed to, or whatever it might be, that the last person in this is Sonya Deville. And that this whole setup of Liv Morgan and Sonya and announcing Carmella and Zelina Vega was to set up that eventually Sonya is going to announce that she is in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and it's not Sasha Banks. Then again, who would that other person have been with this whole idea of the Carmella thing? It wouldn't have been Natalya. It would have
been Liv Morgan.
I would assume that it probably would have been Liv Morgan, right? And then, you know, it bounces around a whole lot, but...
And I think that, honestly, if we're being serious, maybe Sasha Banks doesn't want to wrestle in a fucking ladder match. And maybe I don't blame her for that. Those are hard-hitting matches, and she doesn't have to do it. I think the game plan is Bianca beats Carmella, Sasha pops up, and it's like, oh, she's back. We haven't seen her since WrestleMania. And they start their road to SummerSlam, while Sonya probably is the eighth woman. And I think at the end of the day, Liv Morgan climbs over Sonya Deville to win the briefcase.
I am leaning more towards Sonya than I was even a few days ago for that final participant. I did think that there was more of a chance of Sasha returning and doing all that kind of thing. But once they just slotted Natalya in there, it got me thinking about a lot of other opportunities. And without saying who I think is going to win the ladder match, I think that the final person is going to be Sonya. And obviously, if Rob thinks that Sonya is going to be in the mix of that too, Callum, who do you think is going to be that final person?
It's most likely Sonya, but I think if it's not Sonya, it's Becky.
Becky is definitely an option. She is supposed to be on the Monday Night Raw roster, but she doesn't have to be, and she could be in the free agent status.
She's a free agent. She wasn't drafted.
Oh, wait, that's right. Yeah, they did do the draft. They did in the drafter. That's right.
Oh, that's right. They did, you know, Callum with the knowledge.
She's on the free agent list on the website. I should have just clicked on it.
If it's Becky Lynch, then the game's changed. Becky Lynch wins, and, you know, she's on her way. But also, maybe Becky doesn't want to do a ladder matches suck physically. Like, I can't imagine being like, hey, you haven't been in a ring, you know, for a while. Let's put you in a ladder match.
Well, now, Callum, you're thinking Becky Lynch is in there. Is that because you think that Becky's going to win?
No, I said Sonya's going to be in the match, but if it's not Sonya, it's Becky.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You said the Sonya. But so, breaking down some of the people, for anybody who doesn't know, right now, the current confirmation, we have Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Liv Morgan, Naomi, Natalya, Nikki Ash, which if you don't know is almost a superhero. She's not Nikki Cross anymore. The TBD person, and Zelina Vega, which just, like, that was weird. Zelina Vega's back, and she's going to lose a match, and her husband's going to go on AEW, and it's just, like, it's a mess. Everything's a mess. Person by person, I would think that the person who has the absolute least amount of a chance to win is Natalya, because she was not even factored into this to begin with. And that whole thing is just insane. We will address this a little bit on the hot tags too, but Mandy Rose is in NXT now, and the Mandy and Dana thing was even the prior night still going on with Natalya and Tamina for the Women's Tag Team Championship. And when we had 2 TBD spots, I had thrown out the idea of, I don't know, seems like Natalya and Tamina probably are going to have to go in there because they need 2 other people and you don't have anybody else. And then they decided to include Tegan Nox and Shotzi Blackheart onto the roster and Toni Storm, but it seems like none of them are getting an opportunity, let alone to guaranteed be slotted in there. There's a chance that Aaliyah gets brought up to the roster, but she might not be into the mix quite. I mean, she's definitely not in the mix for Money in the Bank. Let's put it that way. But anytime soon, who knows? Question marks when it comes to that. And then they just, on Twitter, just go, Natty's got that because, I guess, whatever. And it's just very like, we're not doing anything with the women's tag team titles, even though we've set something up. So let's just put Natty in there because she's another person. She's got absolutely no chance of winning this. And if she wins, it's going to be one of those weird deals where they decided at the last second to do the most inconspicuous thing for the sake of it. Agree or disagree, Natty, bottom of the barrel as far as chance of win.
Natty's in the match because she's Natty and she's all reliable and they needed her. Bottom of the barrel, I think, is a fair assessment.
Not about her talent, just about chances to win. But
jeez, I didn't.
I know. I was just saying, in case anybody's wondering, when we said bottom of the barrel, like neither of us meant that.
Yeah, we don't mean that. Like if she was in, let's say there was like a tier list of people with this, she'd definitely be on the $1 tier.
Callum, please.
Actually, might not even make the tier list. Who knows?
Callum, please.
Well, I'll eventually have a call on the spot ranking these people. I mean, she might be the released option for me or something. I don't know, but
you guys are terrible. Off the rails. Don't be you.
I think that Asuka has zero chance of winning this as well.
Yeah. She won't win. But listen, the three absolute no-hopers in this. And that's Natalya, Asuka, and Naomi. Naomi is not winning this, and anyone who believes it is just setting themselves up for disappointment. Because, hey, if Jimmy's going to win the tag title, someone's got to take the fall for that DUI, right?
And it's a shame because I think that they've got an opportunity to do something fun with that. Where, not the DUI, but the Naomi idea. If they do something fun with the DUI, that's insane. But I think that it would be cool if Naomi were to win and to cash in and beat Bianca and go over to SmackDown and be like, I'd love to see a scenario where Roman's champion, the Usos win the tag titles, and Naomi happens to win the Money in the Bank, and Roman talks to Jimmy Uso and he just goes, all right, you got the job done. You won the tag team titles. Now you know what's next, right? And it's just kind of like, what? And he goes, if you're in the family, you need to be a champion. You got to get your wife to cash in that Money in the Bank. And then it becomes this thing about like, hey, you want to really be a part of the family? You're the outsider who married in, but if you really want to be on the table, you really want to eat with the rest of the family, you're winning that fucking title.
You know what? I
that
really
could
like
be
that.
so fun. And
I really like that.
And it's not going to happen. What's going to happen is Naomi's in there to wrestle and to take up a spot. People are going to get upset that she lost, and the hashtag Naomi deserves better is going to trend again or something. But man, how fun would that be for a storyline of like, she doesn't want to cash in on somebody like a Bianca, or if Ripley is still the champion or whatever, because that's not an honorable thing to do. And it just becomes like, hey, look, I am not a part of this family in that kind of way. Fuck you, pal. Like, I'm on the opposite roster. I'm a good person. And then eventually she just goes, fuck it, I guess I gotta do it. And then cashes in and beats Bianca, and it kind of keeps Bianca, from being like a beaten. And I would love to see a storyline like that happen. And I think that could be a lot of fun, but it's not happening. So I'm not banking on Naomi winning that. Banking on that. Subconscious. I don't think Nikki Ash has much of a chance of winning either.
I disagree with that completely. I think Nikki Ash can absolutely win this match.
I think it's too much to add more than one thing at a time. WWE can't focus on that. And they're like, hey, she's got the superhero thing right now. That's good enough.
Yeah. I think it's unlikely. I'd put her in the better end of the of the potential people with chances of winning. And I just feel like, well, she's on a bit of a hot streak at the moment. They might decide that she's the Otis of this year. But we're doing something with her now. Why don't we just give her the briefcase and then have no idea how they're actually going to seriously give her the women's championship?
Maybe she switches from Nikki Ash to Nikki Otis. They just make some kind of an acronym with that. I don't know what OTIS.
God, man, you didn't even try. God, man, you didn't even try on that. God, you'd be embarrassed with yourself.
I want to know what the acronym could be. Drop it in the comments below. What is OTIS coming out for with a OTI superhero?
Oh, Tony is spiraling. Go. Move on.
My brain's fried. Anyway, I don't think she's got much of a chance. And I think that it kind of pretty much boils down to use the phrase that I've said 1,000 times, they either give it to Alexa Bliss because they're obsessed with this Alexa Bliss character right now because they really like Bray Wyatt, but now they have Alexa doing Bray Wyatt, so hey, even better kind of a thing. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Liv Morgan winning this, but if they want to go with that spunky underdog, let's give the fans something to really pop for, then that's an option. And then Zelina Vega is there as just a complete, I don't know what the fuck's going on with this situation. Like, maybe she's got enough of a pull with her reemergence that they're like, we'll give you a push. Or maybe she's brought in and they're immediately like, we're going to punish you for saying that you think that people should unionize. I'm leaning more towards that Zelina Vega's probably a no as well, though. I'm thinking it's Bliss or TBD.
All right. So I think Bliss is unlikely because she's now entering a feud with Doudrop and Eva Marie. So I think that that's going to be more of the thing that she concentrates on. I mean, that could be a reason to stretch out the Money in the Bank or end up in a situation where Eva Marie wins the Money in the Bank briefcase from her, but I think it's unlikely. So I think it's more likely that Doudrop and Eva Marie cost her the match at some point. Zelina Vega it's more of a logistics issue. In fact, I don't think they have a ladder tall enough to reach the briefcase. And so I think it's unlikely. And to me, I think it comes down to if it's not Nikki, and Nikki's, I think, on the outside chance, but I'd put her as third favourite behind Liv Morgan and TBD. TBD is the outright favourite just because it's a surprise name, and if it's either Sonya Deville or it's Becky Lynch, then she immediately becomes the favourite because why the hell wouldn't they? Because it's just like, they're both coming back from long-term hiatuses out of the ring, so it just becomes so obvious that one of them would end up winning the briefcase. The only difference being, if what Rob said earlier, if Liv Morgan is the one that cost Sonya Deville and wins the briefcase herself, because that was Sonya Deville's whole plan in the first place, to keep Liv out of the match, and then Liv is the one that ends up taking the title, but taking the briefcase from her, and then they can enter into a feud which can help stall Liv for a while, meaning that she doesn't cash in for a few months afterwards, because we could have a situation where she holds onto the briefcase, or whoever does win this holds onto the briefcase for several months afterwards. I think it would be more interesting if it was Sonya, just because if she still retains that position of power while holding the briefcase, she can kind of lord it over both the Raw and SmackDown side, because she does appear on both, even though it's been more frequently on SmackDown this time. So
that's the most interesting way to go about this, I think, because if you've got a position of power, you can set yourself up for championship matches where it's like, like right now she's not feuding with anybody. She was doing that little thing with Charlotte, but they've kind of dropped that, where it wasn't like she was feuding with Charlotte. She was kind of like on Charlotte's side, but that seemed like it could potentially go somewhere, and then it didn't. And maybe they pick that back up or maybe not. But like, theoretically, let's just say like, she sticks more on SmackDown and Bianca's there, and there's this looming threat, this black cloud of Sonya Deville could book Bianca in these I quit match type scenarios, being like, hey, at one point you're going to be so beaten down that I know that I can cash in because I've put you in this cage match, or I've put you in this whatever. That's a great way to go about doing that. And I think that Sonya is in a position right now where maybe they realize that like they could do something with her and that she's kind of like great. Like maybe they kind of woke up on that a little bit and actually want to push her.
Yeah. Sonya should have been world champion by this point. Because obviously she got sidetracked because of people being stupid outside the ring. But Sonya would be a great choice, and she does have the authority role. I just can't help but feel like she's the Miz, and Liv Morgan is Zack Ryder pushing him off to win the Intercontinental title. That's the way I see it.
I'm just getting lost in a Seinfeld thing right now when you said she's the Miz. I'm thinking, I'm the Wiz. She's the Miz and nobody beats her. My brain's fried.
Totally fried. Move on.
It really is. So at the end of the day, I think nobody is cashing in on the women's side on this pay-per-view. I think that Sonya Deville is winning the Money in the Bank. And I think that she is potentially going to cash in more so on Bianca Belair than on anything on Monday Night Raw, but that's something that they'll wait a little bit for. That's kind of where I'm leading with all those answers. Gun to your head, you got to pick. How's this playing out, Callum?
TBD is going to win.
Gun to my head, Liv Morgan, and TBD is Sonya Deville.
All right, so moving on from that, let's go over to the men's side of this whole equation. We got Bobby Lashley defending the WWE Championship against Kofi Kingston. This is the other match that I think is just, okay, Bobby Lashley retains. Like, I don't think that there's almost any chance that Kofi Kingston wins this championship. Now, that might factor into the Money in the Bank ladder match. I do think that the winner of the Money in the Bank ladder match is going to factor in with this, and I will come back to that idea. But that depends on, I guess, I mean, it obviously depends on where they want to go with Money in the Bank, but I think it more so depends on what happens with SummerSlam. And I'm hoping that they've sorted it out where Bobby Lashley can beat Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, but I don't think that it's happening at this point. And at the very least, I can just go, well, depending on what they want to do and how they play this out, I'll come back to this again later on, as I mentioned. Bobby Lashley retains against Kofi Kingston.
I think that's the move. I do think that Texas will be rocking for Kofi, wanting Kofi Mania, but I do think it's Bobby Lashley defeating Kofi Kingston.
Yeah, it's the more likely result, and I think it should be, even if you give Kofi a few hope spots in the match, but I think it should be fairly dominant because of what happened on Raw. Like the idea of like, okay, no more women, no more drinking. I don't think it's actually signaling the breakup with MVP that a lot of people are talking about. At least that won't happen, I don't think, for a few months yet. Because I feel like it was just, okay, Bobby's just getting focused now and he just wants to be a killer. And so he's got to start that off by actually killing Kofi Kingston. Figuratively, of course.
Yeah, metaphorically. He's not just going to like chuck him into the pit at Mortal Kombat or something.
No, but I think it needs to be a fairly dominant win.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes from there. I mean, the only way I can see the opposite happening is that there has been like some speculation going around about how, because they want to make SummerSlam like a WrestleMania type feel, that they might do a New Day triple threat.
Oh, I haven't heard anything about that.
I've heard some like, it's more just like speculation.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? What do they want at SummerSlam?
A New Day triple threat match.
Oh, fuck that.
For the WWE Championship this week.
That'd be awful.
I think that with this whole MVP thing, I got the impression at the very beginning of it that they were just going to go, hey, people like that Hurt Business thing. Let's fuck it over. And then at least we'll have MVP and Bobby Lashley. But fans are coming back, so let's fuck it over even more. I don't think that that's the case anymore. Once that played out the way that it was, I'm like, okay, they're writing off the girls because they don't want them to be traveling, you know? We do know that they are saving as much money as they possibly can, and that they are only going to be having 2 extras per show, it seems. So that right there, you used to have between 5 and I think 6 at one point, but mostly 5 women that were just hanging around with Bobby Lashley. Well, if you don't want to pay them to go on the road and you don't want to just get a new set of girls every single week, then you have Bobby Lashley say, enough with this shit. Let me get back onto being Mr. Serious Guy. And I think that that's what happened there. I don't think that he's splitting from MVP. For the record. Your Honor.
Yeah.
In case somebody, brings this into court evidence later on. I don't know why. Get the light bulb off me. But now, Rob, you do think that the Money in the Bank's factoring in with this as well, but don't spoil who you think's going to win it.
So
but just yes or no.
It's obvious who he thinks is going to win it if he thinks it's factoring into this match.
Yeah. Well, Cal is Mr. Blunt today.
Well, some people, I mean, legitimately, I am seeing some things online where people think that, again, I don't know why, but there's plenty of people that think that, hey, Kevin Owens is a heel right now, and John Morrison's going to cash in on Kofi Kingston's going to win.
Because they're dumb, Tony, because they're dumb.
There's a wide variety of options that a lot of people think is the case, and there are people that think that, say, for instance, Drew McIntyre is using this as his means to get back into the title hunt. There are people that think that Seth Rollins is going to win to be able to cash in on Roman Reigns. There's a wide variety of different things that are out there.
I'm not saying it's a foregone conclusion that who Rob thinks is going to win will win the match. There are options. But I'm saying if he thinks that this person is going to cash in tonight in that match, there is only one choice.
Yeah, it's only one choice that I could be talking about. I can only be talking about Big E. Like, it's not like, oh my god, and Shinsuke Nakamura has stepped up to save Kofi Kingston from Bobby Lashley.
There is a whole contingency, though, of people that are just like, man, Drew McIntyre is going to win that title, and that's how they're going to end that thing. I don't think that at all, just to spoil one of those parts of the Money in the Bank.
All right, I'll say this right now. If Drew McIntyre wins the briefcase, he's cashing in when they're overseas in the UK. Other than that, I did think Big E would cash in, and then they ended Raw by having Bobby Lashley go, no more bullshit. No more girl. And then I said, oh, well, fuck. Now I want to see him fight Brock Lesnar. Because we're back to that again. Because I just want to see Bobby Lashley fight Brock Lesnar.
Well, if Drew McIntyre wins, he can't cash in on Bobby Lashley.
No, he can. They already established that he can.
They already established that he can.
And that's dumb.
Yeah, there are means to get around that. Because that's what's getting some people talking about.
It's not their means of getting around. It's not their means of getting around it. It's their means of saying that Drew might actually win when he's absolutely not going to win.
Yeah, see, but I mean, like, they did enough that it's got people thinking about it, because they had Drew McIntyre on this episode of Raw that just passed say, I want him in the Money in the Bank ladder match because that's my way to get back into the WWE title hunt. So that made people go, oh, fuck, they're setting it up. None of us, the three of us at the very least, think that that's going to happen.
Did he specifically say that means I can challenge Bobby Lashley if I win the Money in the Bank briefcase?
Yes.
I don't think he said specifically I can challenge Bobby Lashley, but I think he specified the WWE Championship.
Yeah, well, it means that after Lashley loses, then he could challenge the next person immediately.
No, you're trying to make it logical, where they literally just mean if he wins, he can just cash on Lashley, because fuck that rule that he agreed to 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. But it's credit where it's due. They're setting up that idea to get that implanted into people's minds, and it's working for some of those people. Like, I do think that there's more of a chance that Drew McIntyre wins this than somebody like a Ricochet, for instance. But I don't think that that's going to be the case. And the list of the people that are currently in the Money in the Bank ladder match, I'm assuming, of course, it's not going to change, but you never know. Right now, the men's Money in the Bank match is Big E, Drew McIntyre, John Morrison, Kevin Owens, Ricochet, Matt Riddle, Seth Rollins, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Kind of going in the same regard that we did with the other ones. I think that there are a couple people here that stand no chance whatsoever. I think that one of those is Kevin Owens, unfortunately, because he just doesn't have momentum on his side. I just can't picture them giving it to Kevin Owens.
Kevin Owens is one of the few names, though, that could win this, get a big pop, and
I'd pop.
figure it out later. And they like that mentality.
I think that Ricochet stands no chance. He'd get a big pop, but what's the likelihood that
Fuck
they would
that.
actually want to push him?
Yeah,
Fuck that.
He'd get a really loud pop from like the crickets in the audience. That'd be great. Ricochet is so lame. It's so, and not him in terms of like just his in-ring ability, but his character is the lamest.
He's got no real character.
That's the,
Yeah.
well, no, he does have a character. It's he's no longer doing the superheroes the real thing, but he was just that little promo that he cut in the lead up to the money in like where everyone was coming out, cutting promos about Money in the Bank. Oh, he's a jokey guy. He makes little jokes. Like he is so uncool in pretty much every respect.
Ricochet's in this match to do one, if not more, flippy flips.
I hope he's here to essentially do something that cost Drew McIntyre the match, and then McIntyre takes his head off for the next month.
I think he's here to literally do a spot. And to maybe just be another one of those guys where it's like, hey, why not we give him a spot? And people might root for him and be disappointed, kind of a thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Can I ask about this? Because I know, and we mentioned Drew McIntyre quite a lot. I know we talk about people that we don't think have the chance, but does Drew McIntyre? Why is everyone so excited about this Jinder Mahal feud?
Are people really excited about it?
Who do you know?
But everyone seems to think that like everyone seems to feel like it seemed like and we've talked about this as well. It's like it's clearly building up for a feud with Drew McIntyre at some point. Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal for SummerSlam, or in the next couple of months, or they'll feud over the WWE Championship. Like, I think, why do we even want to think that that's going to happen? Like, why do we even allow ourselves to think that that was going to happen? And the fact that it is going to happen, it just feels like I don't think of anything else that I'd rather see Drew McIntyre do less at SummerSlam than fight Jinder Mahal.
I think that there was an opportunity to do that back when he was the champion. He could have been a solid contender for a month, but they dropped the ball with it, and now they're just doing this thing with this new toy motorcycle wrecking something or other, and the sword thing, and it's just kind of.
But my question kind of develops by that: why do people want to see Jinder Mahal wrestle? Because he's come back and he's no better than he was when before the injury. He still can't do his finishing move correctly. And he's got two even worse pieces of shit flanking him now. It's just like that whole act is dead on arrival, and Drew McIntyre is going to have to waste a good month of his career just dispatching of a former 3MB member that somehow got the WWE Championship before he did.
My brain is literally fried enough that when you said that the two pieces of shit flanking him, I'm like, one of them should just be Flanky and Shanky. I can't get that out of my head.
Stop talking. You're right. I got this. Callum's right. Why are we I don't know anybody that's excited for the way that they handled this, but I can't think of anything I'd rather see Drew McIntyre do less.
You mean to tell me you wouldn't rather see Flanky and Shanky?
Well, no, I don't want to see this feud because I assume that Mahal's going to cost McIntyre in this match anyway. So That's the reason why I'm talking about that. And that's why I think he has no chance as well, even though he's someone who should realistically have a chance. It's the issue, the fact that not only are we going to have to see that match at SummerSlam, it means for a few weeks on Raw, we're going to have to see Drew McIntyre take on these two absolute, no hopers in the ring at this point. Like, they have no ability whatsoever. And we have to see him take on both of them. He'll have to take on Shanky first. And then, who's the other one?
Veer.
Yeah, take on Veer afterwards. And then he'll have a handicap match against both of them.
And then they'll have the 6-man tag where it's Shanky and Veer. I was going to call him Flanky.
Shanky, Veer and Mahal against McIntyre and the Viking Raiders.
Yeah, something like that. Or or it'll
Okay.
be against RK Bro, or against Ricochet and somebody random, or like it'll just be because you have 4 weeks to kill before 5 weeks. How many weeks is that between them? Wait, so we got
it's too long
the
left,
18th
probably.
and the 21st is when it is. So
About a
1,
month.
2, 3, 4 weeks. Yeah, so you got 4 weeks worth of matches to kill. You do the one match, you do the other match, you do the handicap match, you do the 6-man tag. There's 4.
Yeah, super exciting.
And it'll be Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre finally get their hands on each other in a regular match at SummerSlam. And that'll be in the mid card, and Drew McIntyre will kick his head off, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah.
But no, that won't be the end of it because they'll drag it out even more. They'll do a match at Extreme Rules. That'll be some kind of like a Punjabi prison match or something. And then now that'd be too interesting. They'll just do like a street fight that they renamed something else.
I'd be too interested to do the worst match type of in modern history.
Yeah, at least we give them something to be like, wow, this was shit, wasn't it? Instead of, oh, this was nothing.
Great Khali can make a return and climb up again.
No, why can't we do Claymore on a pole? Like, why can't we just hang the sword, and whoever gets the sword...
It's dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah, that sword falls. It's gonna be...
Just stab the guy!
Are we going to get the same people to hang it out like they did with Owen Hart back in '99?
Yeah, there's plans.
Quick release there.
There's plans with this Drew McIntyre Jinder Hall thing that don't factor in Money in the Bank. That's for sure. Unless this is just some weird ass like, hey, let's give that guy the Money in the Bank and have him feud with Jinder Mahal, and that'll keep him busy from not cashing in on Bobby Lashley thing. But I don't think that that's the case. I don't have a whole lot of hope for John Morrison winning this.
Fuck him. Look, let's take out the Raw half of the equation, because unless they wake up one day and are just like Riddle, let's just take the Raw half.
I was gonna say, I don't think you can take out the Raw half of the equation because, like, Shinsuke Nakamura is not winning this.
No, but Seth Rollins could have a chance if they wake up in the right mood. There's only 2 people who have a good shot at it, and Rollins' chance isn't even that good. That's just if they decide, hey, let's have Edge beat Roman for a pop and have Rollins cash in, but they're not beating Roman, so that's off the table. It's Biggie or it's Kevin Owens if they just decide Owens will pop the crowd.
I don't think that either. I think that...
So why are we still talking about this? It's Big E getting the briefcase, and he might cash in on Lashley or he doesn't cash in at all. Like, it's...
I do think that there's a chance that Matt Riddle wins.
I don't.
Because, I mean, the lawsuit just got dropped this week.
Okay, cool.
That's more of a reason than ever for them to go, we've been pushing this guy. We really seem to like him and all that. He would be some up-and-comer type. We're going to do something with him. I don't think it's happening, for the record. That's not my pick. But I do think that Riddle stands a far better chance to win than anybody other than the person who I think is going to win. And that's Big E. But I think Riddle's got a better chance of winning it than Seth Rollins does, even.
Cool. Either way, I think it's Big E. Look, it's a weak lineup. It's one of the weakest lineups, in my opinion, in Money in the Bank history as far as the men's ladder match is concerned. I think Big E has to win to pop the crowd. We know for a fact that they have said, hey, you know what would be a good idea? Putting the New Day together again. Well, brilliant. And the only way you do that is Big E. I'll tell you this. You do New Day Triple Threat at SummerSlam, I think it's an awful idea, but people will pop because it will be 3 fan favorite black wrestlers in a SummerSlam main event. Not the SummerSlam main event, because that's John Cena and Roman Reigns, but they are in a SummerSlam main event, and I think people will pop for it. There is a scenario where if they wake up feeling smart and they do Tony's idea about Naomi and Big E gets this, you have a crowd going nuts for Money in the Bank. But that aside, I do think it's Big E. I do think there's still a chance Big E just beats Bobby Lashley. Because, like, what a pop. What a pop. And it's about the pop because the attraction for this show, as crazy as it is is that there will be live reactions from humans. That is the attraction for this show. Above the ladder matches, above Edge and Roman Reigns, the attraction is the fans. You've got to pop the fans, and Big E will pop the fans. Am I wrong, Callum?
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Am I wrong?
Sorry, I almost fell asleep for a second there. Well, I think that Big E's the most likely choice to win. I don't think he's cashing in the same night. I feel like your assessment of the lineup is slightly incorrect. I think, considering the people that are in this match, and if everything goes as well as it could go, this will probably be the greatest Money in the Bank match they ever lived. Because these are probably the 8 most talented guys they've ever had in a Money in the Bank ladder match.
But I meant it from a character standpoint. Like, I meant it from a who could win here standpoint.
Well, I think that Riddle does have a good chance of winning. I would think that him winning and then continuing the stuff with doesn't intervene with continuing the RK Bro stuff. In fact, it even gives a reason that Randy Orton will eventually turn on Riddle so he can get hold of the Money in the Bank briefcase. So I feel like there is a very real possibility that Riddle wins this match. I think that Kevin Owens is unlikely, but you can never really rule him out entirely because he's a guy that can do something good with the briefcase in the time that he has it. And I think people get too hung up on the fact, especially considering the fact that WWE have done this so recently, so often, in that this guy could hold this briefcase realistically for a year, or near as to. So we kind of get hung up on the fact that the Big E example in particular, if Big E wins the briefcase, he's probably going to cash in sometime around SummerSlam. But I imagine that if he wins the briefcase, he will go on Raw and he will challenge Bobby Lashley using his briefcase for the title at SummerSlam.
That's exactly where I'm going.
Yeah, and that would be my my prediction in terms of what I think is going to happen. But if one of the other people win it, then there's always a while to build them up. I think that if I was to rank them, or at least rank the top 3 likely ones to win it, it would be Big E, and then it would be Big E, Riddle, and then Rollins probably.
Yeah, I am very much in the camp of Big E wins this, it pops the crowd, he doesn't cash in, let alone on this night, but he doesn't cash in like a take advantage of the opportunity type of a cash in. I think that he comes out on Monday Night Raw, maybe not even the Monday Night Raw that's immediately following, maybe they even drag it out, but I can see a scenario where it's like, hey, Bobby Lashley is celebrating that he beat Kofi Kingston and such, blah, blah, blah. And Big E comes out and says, you're not going to be celebrating longer. I want that title. And, I'm going to, maybe he doesn't even necessarily specify this, but like, I'm going to do the honorable thing here. And like, I'm going to cash it in at SummerSlam because I don't want any excuses. I don't want you talking about how you just lost because I cashed in when you were down. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to beat you straight up. And that's their means to do something that feels like it's kind of big for SummerSlam because they don't have the Brock Lesnar match. I think that was their original plan. And it would have been Lashley versus Lesnar and Roman Reigns versus John Cena. And they couldn't get Brock Lesnar to agree to it, so they're going to fall back on the Big E thing. Now, they could fall back on the Big E thing without doing the Money in the Bank, but then it doesn't feel as big. Because then it just seems like, hey, we're bringing Big E over because we have nothing else in mind. At least with the cash-in, as much as the whole, like, wasting the cash-in by announcing it in advance is, at least then it seems like, oh shit, Big E is cashing in the Money in the Bank, and the only times in the past that somebody's done this has been John Cena and RVD. I think they're the only two, right? They're the only two that cashed in advance.
Correct.
Mm.
And, John Cena wins that match, but he wins by like DQ or whatever it was. And RVD wins the title. So people start going, they're going to push Big E, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. I think that's where they're going here. but it wouldn't shock me if they went in a different direction just to swerve people, and if their idea is to just give it to somebody like a Matt Riddle and just be like, well, we'll figure it out. I don't think it's going to Rollins, because I don't think that, and we'll talk about this with the Universal title match, but I don't think that the Rollins and Edge thing is going to be for the championship. I think it's just going to be a feud for the sake of it. Same thing for Kevin Owens. I think Kevin Owens at some point is going to fight Edge, and it's just going to be a match. Just the way that it is. There's a groundswell of support for John Morrison. I think it's people making something up. I'm a big fan of Morrison. I would love to see him get that world title at some point, but I don't think it's there right now.
Not with the Drip character, at least.
Or at least not right now with that character either. Maybe it ends up getting super over with the crowd and we don't know it yet. But they don't know it yet either. And Nakamura just won that crown from King Corbin. He won that. That's good enough. You don't need to give him another thing on top of that. So McIntyre's busy with Jinder Mahal. Ricochet's there to do some flips. It's Big E. Big E's going to win this. That's my final pick.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So Money in the Bank is really hard to come by, and you might want to try to save some of that money in your bank. And if you are interested in picking up something from our sponsor for this episode, Manscaped, a great way to save money in your bank is to use the promo code SMARK, SMARK, while you're over there on manscaped.com and you're picking up whatever you want to pick up there. Because if you use that code, you will get 20% off of your order, and you will get free shipping on whatever it is that you're picking up there. If you want to trim yourself up and not look like one of the Viking Raiders and, get rid of that gangly beard and everything, then use the different razors and shavers and everything that they have over there. They got the weed whacker trimmer to clean out that nose hair. You don't want to have weeds growing out of there. And you've got the advanced skin safe technology that's over on the Lawnmower 4.0 shaver, which can clean up not just, of course, what's going on in your face, but what's down below, because it's Manscaped. This is to protect your balls. So they have that skin safe technology to make sure that you're not getting any kind of problems down there with, the blades being too sharp in a sensitive area, or, if you want to make sure that you've got something like the ball deodorant or whatever, keep things fresh. Or if you don't have a briefcase and you want to get a travel kit, you can't really carry this stuff around in the same Money in the Bank thing and cash in somewhere. You got to keep things set up in a different way. So if you want to take advantage of that, hit up that promo code over there on manscaped.com. Use that promo code SMARK. Pick up some of those different things. And tell us your experience with that whole thing. Pass along the knowledge of manscaped.com. You should know it. You should take advantage of that while you can. Your balls will thank you. So will we. So we're all going Big E winning that Money in the Bank ladder match, and we've kind of alluded to the way that this is going to play out. But the final thing we're going to talk about here, I'm assuming that this is the actual main event of the show. Universal Championship match, Roman Reigns versus Edge. There, of course, is a chance that Edge wins this. Because he is Edge. It would pop the crowd, etc., etc. But I don't think that there's that much of a chance to be realistic. I think that Roman Reigns is on this tear where they're just going to keep that belt on him until at least WrestleMania if they can, or at least until they get somebody who they think needs to win the championship for whatever reason. I could see him going way past WrestleMania even. It's certainly not feeling to me like Money in the Bank against Edge is where they're going to go with this.
The proper time to put it on Edge would have been WrestleMania, even though I didn't like the Roman Edge matchup. The 10 years story was more the story. They're coming back 10 years later. You won the Royal Rumble. You did the Iron Man thing. That's the story. This isn't a great story, and I don't see a reason to put it on Edge, but I am glad that Edge will be wrestling in front of people.
Yeah, because when was the last match that he did other than WrestleMania that was in front of people? Royal Rumble, right?
The Royal Rumble.
But realistically, he's only had like 3 matches in the interlude.
Yeah. I mean, he's only scheduled to wrestle a few matches per year to begin with, too, and that's another reason to not give him the championship. But he was injured, and yeah.
But he seems to... He takes it seriously, so if he's the champion, he'll wrestle. because he takes it seriously. But I don't see him beating Roman Reigns because Roman Reigns is still on a tear, and they're setting up that Cena match. Like, it's not a secret.
Yeah, fundamentally, Roman Reigns is facing John Cena at SummerSlam, almost certainly at this point. So he needs the championship for that because, I mean, necessarily you don't necessarily need it for Cena against Reigns, but that adds the intrigue of will Cena win his 17th World Championship against Roman Reigns? That will be the big pull of SummerSlam. That's the only thing that SummerSlam really needs to get any sort of real attention coming to it. So, yeah, for that to happen, he has to beat Edge here. And I can just pretty much see that happening because Seth Rollins gets involved.
Right. There's going to be
and that leads to the Rollins Edge match at SummerSlam. So all of those things will coalesce into one neat package here, meaning that there is a less than 5% chance Edge wins. And yeah, I just think it's a pretty foregone conclusion overall.
Yeah, I see it being ref bump, Uso gets involved, takes a spear, other Uso takes a spear, Edge thinks he's got it, and then Rollins curb stomps Edge while he's pinning Roman to give Roman the win, give Edge the out to fight Rollins, and then we're setting up SummerSlam.
I don't think that Rollins is interfering. I think that they're just going to set that up on SmackDown. Maybe have I don't know, maybe something else happens where Roman Reigns retains and Edge is trying to cut a promo about that's bullshit or something, and then Rollins comes out and says, you've already had your chance, whatever. I think that I guess it's just more so I don't trust that, or not even trust. I don't think that WWE wants to put all their eggs in one basket. I think that they want to spread out as much as they possibly can. And if we've got 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches and potentially at least one title change, whether it's Flair or it's, I don't think that the Viking Raiders are winning, but whatever it might be, I think that they're going to kind of be like, all right, well, that's good enough for that one. We need something on Raw or SmackDown to get people talking, and then we need something on this to get people talking, and hey, Edge is going to be on SmackDown this week, that kind of deal.
I think they just run Rollins because they have already started setting the stage. So we'll see. Either way, Roman Reigns wins. I hope it's a good match. I'll say that. I have confidence in them. Although I do have an issue that it's been built around this move with the pipe, the crossface, that you can't do in a normal match. But we'll see. Like I said, ref bump, so we'll see how they get around that. I do think it'll be good because Edge is great at what he does. Roman's been great in this role. I do think the act has gotten stale a little bit. Not stale to the point where I don't want to see it, but just stale to where they need to add new layers.
For Roman, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be... The likelihood is it's going to be a very good match. I just think it's going to be fairly littered with interference. I think they'll do the thing where you have the Usos interfere, and so they think that, okay, that's the way that it goes. Whether the Usos had that match with the Mysterios earlier or not, I think that's pretty irrelevant because I think they'll try and get involved. Maybe the Mysterios chase them off, and then you think, oh my god, they're gone, and Edge is in a good position, and then Rollins comes in and takes him out, and that sets that up. So that's how I see the match structure going, at least by the finish. Hopefully the thing before that is pretty good to watch, though.
In any fashion, Roman Reigns retains because he's going to have that match with John Cena. Or even if he doesn't have that match with John Cena, Roman Reigns retains anyway because it's Roman Reigns. The priority right now is to build him and then not necessarily give it to Edge, who might wrestle Seth and then not wrestle again for another 4 months or whatever it might be. We'll see how this all works out about the match specifics and everything, but we're all going in that direction of Roman Reigns retaining. We've got our differences for some of the other matches, but we are kind of leaning in the same way for most of them, which could make it seem like it's predictable, but at the same time, predictable doesn't necessarily mean bad. and we could be completely floored with some weird decisions that they make on this. And by the time we get around to the post show, we could be like, what the hell? We didn't think that the Viking Raiders and Kofi and Asuka and Ricochet would end up winning these matches and whatever. I don't know. Stranger things have happened. Stranger Things is a great show. I wish that was back already. But this show's happening. And as I said before, if we get any kind of updates on the card, which we should at the very least, figure out the TBD on the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, if not the kickoff match, if not any more matches, by the time that SmackDown's over with, we will address those on the hot tag, so stay tuned for that, for any kind of updates like that, or if there are any other kind of updates that have to go after that, you will find them on smarkoutmoment.com for all the coverage stuff. While you're heading there to smarkoutmoment.com, check out the Heat of the Moment tournament that is going on right now. We are on round 1 of trying to determine who the best heel act in AEW and WWE is right now. The brackets have been set a couple hours ago, about like 12 hours ago, really, at this point that we're recording it, where we've got actually 2 triple threats for the first round because, for instance, AJ Styles and Omos and the Usos, as well as Matt Hardy and Team Taz, were on the same level of the bracket status. So we got like Matt Hardy, Team Taz, and MJF. Which one moves on to round 2? You get to decide. That's kind of the whole point of a poll, is you get to vote. So vote on that while you can. Make sure that you are following everything else that's happening at Smark Out Moment all over the place on Facebook and Twitter and just the website articles and obviously the YouTube stuff and the other podcast material that we've got going your way. Check out fanboysanonymous.com for everything that's happening there, like our Review to a Kill James Bond podcast series that we are doing, which we are currently recording episodes of from Recap with Love, our tier lists and Mount Rushmores that we were doing with that. The next episode that you guys are going to be hearing, though, from this Friday is going to be a series of quizzes that we've done, these Sporkle quizzes and everything. So if you're interested in the James Bond stuff, check that out. We've got movie reviews like Black Widow. We've got fan tracks. Rob and I just watched Tucker and Dale versus Evil as part of a Patreon sponsored thing the other day. That was fun.
Surprisingly good.
So if you want more movie content or discussion about anything like that on geek culture topics like video games and such, head on over to fanboysanonymous.com. Like, share, follow, favorite, subscribe, do all that stuff over on the Blue Brand, and check out what we're all doing individually through our own just personal social media accounts. I am at Tony Mango. Rob is at Dude Felice.
I am, and if you like the world of professional wrestling, you will love the world of Fightful.com this weekend, because not only do we have Money in the Bank and everything going on there, but we will have in-person coverage from Sean Ross Sapp of Impact Slammiversary in Nashville this weekend. There will be some surprises from the WWE releases, so that's always fun to keep an eye out for. Deonna Purrazzo is facing a mystery opponent, so that's fun. So stay tuned for everything this weekend, and stay tuned to Fightful.com and Fightful Select for all of the hottest, most up-to-date professional wrestling scoops out there. Outside of that, follow me on Twitter at Dude Felice and everywhere else at Dude Felice to keep up with everything I've got going on. And now I will turn it over to Kel Miggins.
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. You check out all of the articles on smarkoutmoment.com, all of the weekly stuff, and any random bits and pieces that get thrown on there as well. My weekly contribution, as always, is the power rankings. So if you're interested in checking that stuff out, to see who's on top of the tree for every given week, then head on over to that. But make sure you're checking out Triple Threats, the Battle of the Brands, any other stuff that we have posted on there on a regular basis. And yeah, that's it from me.
All right, everybody. So we will tell you what happens when it comes to this. And we will be breaking that down with another live post show. So be sure to join us for that after Money in the Bank is finished. Again, if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel and you don't have that notification email alert set up, do that in advance. That way you know that, hey, we got the email, they're live. Pop on over and join the live chat and do that kind of thing. And if you're not able to join us live, you'll be able to listen to it afterwards, just the same as everything else. But hopefully we'll see you then. And hopefully this will be a great pay-per-view. Hopefully you enjoy your week in the meantime. And adios for now, though, because this has been another Smark Out moment. And we're being counted out.